My name is Olivia. I am 27 years old. I live in a small apartment in Seattle with my younger sister, Alina. She is 14 and still in school. We lost our parents when I was 19. It was sudden, and it changed everything. From that day, I promised myself I would keep Alina safe, no matter what happened to me. She is the only family I have. I work at a small pharmacy near the downtown market. The pay is not much, but it is enough for rent, food, and her school fees. At least, that is what I believed when I first started there. It began one rainy night, much like the one I had just run through. The streets outside were dark and wet. My boss, Mr. Kareem, asked me to stay late. He said we had a big delivery to check. I needed the extra hours, so I agreed without thinking. The back room smelled of damp cardboard and chemicals. Boxes were stacked against the wall. Many had no labels at all. Some had dates that had already passed months ago. Mr. Kareem told me to put them on the shelves anyway. His voice was calm, but there was no kindness in it. I knew it was wrong. Selling expired medicine was illegal. But I stayed quiet, kept my eyes down, and did as he said. A week later, an old woman named Mrs. Parker came in. She was coughing so hard that she had to hold her chest. She asked for cough syrup. I handed her a bottle from the shelf. She smiled, thanked me, and walked slowly out into the rain. 2 days later, her daughter came in, angry and shaking. She slammed the same bottle on the counter. She shouted that the syrup was fake and had made her mother worse. Her eyes were full of fear. I froze. Before I could speak, Mr. Kareem came from the back and took the bottle away. He told her it was a mistake and replaced it with another one. He gave her a fake smile until she left. Then he looked at me. He didn't say a word, but I understood. I was not to talk about what I saw. That night, I lay awake in bed. I could hear the rain hitting the windows. I kept thinking about Mrs. Parker's cough and her daughter's angry, worried face. My chest felt heavy. I knew I could not just forget. I decided to start keeping a record. I bought a small notebook and kept it in my bag. I wrote down the names of the products I thought were fake and the dates I found. When no one was watching, I took photos with my phone. I hid everything in a flour tin at home, behind a bag of sugar. From that moment, fear became my shadow. I checked over my shoulder when I walked home. I noticed every car that slowed down on our street. I told Alina never to open the door for strangers. She asked why, but I only told her to trust me. The less she knew, the safer she would be. One night we got another late delivery at the pharmacy. 2 men came in carrying large boxes. Their shoes left wet marks on the floor. They went straight to the back. I heard one of them say, "No paperwork tonight." My heart began to pound. I stood in the doorway and lifted my phone to take a photo. The click of the camera was soft, but one man turned around. His eyes met mine. I quickly lowered the phone and pretended to sweep the floor. My palms were wet with sweat. A few days later, strange things began to happen. A black car appeared outside our building. It stayed there for hours, engine off, windows dark. No one got out. One night, close to midnight, someone knocked on our door. The knock was slow, like they wanted me to listen. A man's voice said he was our neighbor and that there was a water leak downstairs. But our downstairs neighbor was an old woman with a soft voice, and this was not her. I didn't open the door. I stood still until the footsteps faded away. The next morning at work, Mr. Kareem asked about Alina. His voice was smooth, almost friendly, but I felt a cold weight in my stomach. "She's fine," I said, trying not to show fear. He smiled in a way that made my skin crawl. That night, when I checked my phone before bed, I saw the message. "Stay quiet. Think carefully." My fingers felt numb. I knew I needed help. I thought of my old friend Sarah. We had gone to school together, and she now worked as a nurse at a hospital in the city. She had always been honest, even when the truth was hard. I called her and asked if we could meet. The next day, I took my notebook, my phone, and all the photos to her. We met in the hospital cafe. The smell of coffee mixed with the sound of rain outside. I told her everything. I spoke quickly, afraid that if I stopped, I might lose the courage to finish. She listened without interrupting. When I was done, she took my hand and said, "This is serious, Olivia. You can't keep this to yourself. It's dangerous for you and your sister." Sarah told me about a man at the hospital who worked as a patient advocate. He helped report unsafe medical practices. She said we should speak to him first before going to the police to understand our options. I agreed. We made a plan. I would make a second copy of all my notes and photos. Sarah would keep one set in her hospital locker, and I would keep the other hidden at home. If anything happened to me, she could still act. When I left the hospital, the black car was there again. This time it was parked near the bus stop. I didn't look at it. I walked to the corner, my bag heavy with the envelope. I thought of Alina's smile when she told me about her math test. I thought of Mrs. Parker coughing in front of me. My fear was real, but my reason for acting was stronger. That night, rain covered the city like a blanket. I sat by the window with a cup of tea. The street below was quiet, but my thoughts were loud. Alina was in her room doing homework. I told myself I would not run away from this. The secret I carried was dangerous, but the truth was more important. I didn't know what would happen next. I only knew that tomorrow I would take the next step. The next morning, the rain had stopped. The air felt heavy, like it was holding its breath. I stood by the kitchen counter, drinking coffee and thinking about my plan. Alina sat at the table, eating cereal. She looked up at me and smiled. I forced myself to smile back, but my thoughts were already far away. I had the envelope in my bag. It held my photos and notes. Today, I would take it to Sarah so she could make the second copy. I checked it twice before we left the apartment. My hands were cold, even though the room was warm. We took the bus together. Alina talked about her science class. I listened, but I was also watching the people around us. A man in a gray coat sat across the aisle. He was reading a newspaper, but every now and then I felt his eyes on me. When we reached her school, I walked her to the gate. "Be safe," I told her. She laughed and said, "You too." The hospital cafe was busy when I arrived. I found Sarah near the window. Her hair was tied back, and she had a notebook open in front of her. I gave her the envelope under the table. She slipped it into her bag without looking inside. "We'll copy everything tonight," she said softly. "Then we talk to the advocate tomorrow." I nodded. My stomach was tight. I wanted this to be over, but I knew it would only get harder. On my way back to the pharmacy, I noticed the same gray coat from the bus. The man was walking on the other side of the street. I told myself it was a coincidence, but my legs moved faster. When I reached the store, Mr. Kareem was in the back. The air smelled like strong disinfectant, too strong for normal cleaning. He came out, wiping his hands. "Olivia," he said, "we may get an inspection next week. Make sure everything looks perfect." His eyes held mine for a second too long. The day passed slowly. Customers came and went. I kept checking the clock, waiting for my shift to end. Just before closing, a delivery truck arrived. This time, it was earlier than usual. I helped carry the boxes in. My hands touched one that felt lighter than it should. I set it down and quickly opened the side. Inside, instead of medicine, I saw rows of small bottles with no labels. My heart raced. I closed the box before anyone saw. That night at home, I called Sarah again. I told her about the delivery. She said we should add it to the report. She also told me that the patient advocate had agreed to meet us tomorrow afternoon. "He's careful," she said. "He knows these cases can be dangerous." I slept badly. Every sound in the hallway made me sit up in bed. Around 3 a.m, I heard footsteps outside our door. They stopped for a moment, then moved away. I didn't. "Open the door!" I stayed awake until the first light came through the window. The next day, I met Sarah in the hospital lobby. We went to a small office on the 3rd floor. The patient advocate's name was Michael. He was in his 40s, with kind eyes and a calm voice. I told him everything, from the expired boxes to the late-night deliveries. I showed him the photos on my phone. He looked at them carefully. "This is serious," he said, "but we have to be careful. If we report this the wrong way, they may hide the evidence." He explained that we needed proof from more than one person. If another worker spoke up, our case would be stronger. I told him that no one else at the pharmacy would dare to speak. He said then we would need more photos, more dates, and clear links between the fake products and the customers who bought them. Sarah put a hand on my arm. "You don't have to do this alone," she said. But I knew that if I didn't go back and collect more proof, nothing would change. I agreed to get more, but my chest felt heavy. That afternoon, I walked back to the pharmacy with my bag pressed close to me. The black car was parked 2 blocks away. I turned down another street to avoid walking past it. Inside the store, everything looked normal. Mr. Kareem was in his office, talking on the phone. I started restocking shelves, but my eyes kept going to the back room. At one point, Mr. Kareem left to get coffee. I slipped into the back and took 3 quick photos of the unlabeled bottles. I wrote the date on a sticky note and stuck it in my notebook. My hands were shaking so much that I almost dropped my phone. When I left work, the air outside felt sharp and cold. I walked fast, but near the bus stop, someone brushed past me from behind. My bag slipped off my shoulder. I bent to pick it up, but when I stood again, the person was gone. My phone was still inside, but the envelope I had kept in the side pocket was missing. My heart dropped. I called Sarah as soon as I got home. "They took it," I said, my voice shaking. "The envelope is gone." She told me not to panic. She still had the copy we made last night. Relief washed over me, but it lasted only a second. If they knew I had the envelope, they knew I was collecting proof. That night, I moved the flour tin to the top shelf in the kitchen. I locked the windows. I even pushed a chair against the door. Alina noticed. "Liv, are you okay?" she asked. I told her I was just tired from work. She didn't believe me, but she didn't push. Lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling. The city outside was quiet, but inside me, everything felt loud. I thought about Michael's words. I needed more proof. But the more I searched, the closer danger came. Still, I knew I would keep going. I couldn't stop now. The rain began again, soft at first, then harder. I closed my eyes and listened. Tomorrow, I would go back. Tomorrow, I would try again. Morning came gray and wet again. The air smelled of rain and salt from the harbor. I sat by the window for a moment, watching the street. Cars moved slowly over the wet road. My chest was tight, but I also felt a strange kind of strength. Today, I would not hide. Today, I would take the next step. I made tea for Alina. She rubbed her eyes and smiled faintly. "You look worried," she said. I told her I was just tired. She packed her school bag. Before we left, I reminded her, "Go straight home after school." She didn't ask why, but her eyes showed she knew something was wrong. We walked together to the bus stop. I left her at the school gate and turned toward downtown. The streets were still damp and the clouds hung low. I kept scanning the sidewalks, looking for anyone familiar. At the pharmacy, the lights were already on. Mr. Kareem was in his office talking on the phone. His eyes followed me for a moment before he turned away. I put my bag under the counter and started checking shelves. A woman came in with a young boy. The boy was coughing badly. She asked for cough syrup. I made sure to choose a safe, real brand, even paying part of the cost myself. I couldn't let her take one of the bad bottles. When the store was quiet, I slipped into the back room. I opened one of the new boxes. Inside were small bottles with no labels. My heart pounded. I took quick photos and wrote the date on a piece of paper. As I slid it into my pocket, I heard footsteps. Mr. Kareem stood in the doorway. "Busy morning?" he asked with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I told him I was just checking stock. He told me to leave the boxes alone and walked away. My hands were still shaking when I returned to the counter. At lunch, I texted Sarah. "I have more proof." She replied, "Meet after work." Her short message made my heart race faster. Later that day, a man in a gray coat came in to buy gum. I had seen him before, on the bus, outside the store. He paid and left without a word, but I felt his eyes on me the whole time. Near closing time, a delivery truck arrived. The boxes had a fake company name on the label. I signed the sheet, folded it quickly, and hid it in my apron. This could link the deliveries to the store. When I left work, the streets were almost empty. I heard a car engine behind me. It slowed to match my pace. The window rolled down a little. A man's voice said my name softly. "You should stop," he said. "Think of your sister." The car drove off before I could move. Fear made my knees weak, but I kept walking. I went straight to the hospital to meet Sarah. We sat in a small office with Michael, the patient advocate. I showed them the photos and the delivery sheet. Michael's face was serious. "This is enough to start a case," he said, "but it will put you at risk." My stomach twisted. Still, I said, "File it." Sarah reached over and squeezed my hand. Michael warned us not to go home alone tonight. Sarah invited me and Alina to stay with her. I called Alina and told her to meet us there. When she arrived, she looked worried. "Is this about your work?" she asked. I told her I would explain later. For now, we were safe. That night, Michael sent me a short message. "Report filed. Inspectors tomorrow." I barely slept. Early the next morning, Michael called again. The inspectors wanted me there when they went to the pharmacy. Sarah stayed with Alina at the hospital while I went with Michael and the inspectors. We arrived before the store opened. Mr. Kareem came in a few minutes later. His face turned pale when he saw the badges. The inspectors went straight to the back room. They opened boxes, checked dates, and took photos. They found the unlabeled bottles and sealed them in bags. One inspector told Mr. Kareem to wait by the door. A police officer soon arrived. He spoke quietly with the inspectors, then turned to Mr. Kareem. "You are under arrest," he said. Mr. Kareem looked at me for a long moment. His eyes were full of hate, but I didn't look away. When they led him out in handcuffs, I felt my fear begin to fade. The inspectors thanked me and said the store would be closed. They promised to follow up with the customers who might have been hurt. Outside, the rain had stopped. I called Sarah to tell her it was over. Alina's voice came through the phone next. bright and light. "Can we go home now?" she asked. "Yes," I said. Home. A week later, we moved to a new apartment on a quiet street. The windows looked out over a small park. The black car never came again. I slept through the night for the first time in months. I never went back to the pharmacy. Instead, I began helping Michael's team. I spoke with people who had been hurt by bad medicine. I told them to check dates, to ask questions, to protect themselves. I had lived in fear every day, but I had also learned that love can make you brave. And for Alina, I would do it all again. My name is Anna. I am 31 years old. I teach English at Oxford University. I like my job. I like to help people learn. I like the classroom. I like to see my students grow. But my life outside class is quiet. I live alone. I eat alone. I sleep alone. Most days I feel okay, but some nights I feel very lonely. I had a boyfriend once. I thought he loved me. I gave him everything, but he changed. He left. He did not even say goodbye. After that, I closed my heart. I said, no more love. I only wanted to teach. I only wanted to work. I did not want pain again. Then Leo came into my class. He was 22 years old. He joined the beginner English course through international vacancy. He wanted to speak better. He wanted to study in the UK. He was an adult learner, not a child, but still young. He was not like the other students. He was quiet. He was kind. He listened well. He always looked into my eyes when I spoke. He always sat in the third row, near the window. He came early to class. He stayed late after class. He asked questions. Not just about English. He asked about books, about Oxford, about life in England. I always answered. But inside, I felt something strange. I told myself, Anna, stop. You are the teacher. He is your student. This is wrong. But my heart did not listen. My heart waited for him. My heart looked for his smile. One day, after class, he came to my desk. He held a book in his hand. He said, Miss Anna, do you know a quiet place to read? I smiled. I said, yes. There is a bookshop near here. It has a cafe. It is nice and quiet. He smiled back. Thank you, he said. I will go there. That night I made tea. I sat by my window. I looked outside. I thought about Leo. I thought about his voice. I thought about his eyes. I felt warm and confused. I said, no, this is not right. But still, I smiled. The next week, I went to the bookshop. I wanted to buy something to read. I walked past the cafe inside. I saw him. Leo. He was there. He had a cup of coffee. He had a book in his hand. He looked up and saw me. He smiled. "Miss Anna," he said, "you were right. This place is very nice." I wanted to walk away, but he stood up. "Would you like to sit for a minute?" he asked. I said yes. We talked. He told me about his country. He told me about his family. He asked about my life. I told him I live alone. I told him I like quiet places. He said, "You seem like a calm person." I smiled and said nothing. After a while, I stood up. I said, "Thank you. I need to go now," he said. "It was nice to talk to you." That night, I could not sleep. The next day, I met my friend Caroline. She is also a teacher. We had lunch together. She looked at me and said, "You look different. Is something wrong?" I said, "There is a student in my class. I feel something for him." She looked surprised. "Oh," she said, "that can be hard." I nodded. He is kind. He is smart. He listens to me. I do not want to feel this way. Caroline held my hand. She said, "You are human, Anna, but be careful." After that day, I tried to be strong. I tried to act normal, but it was not easy. When I saw Leo, my heart felt heavy. When he spoke, I listened too closely. When he smiled, I smiled back. I hated that I could not control my feelings. One afternoon, after class, he walked beside me. It was raining. He had an umbrella. He said, "Do you want to share it?" I said, "No, thank you. I like the rain." He smiled, but said nothing. We walked in silence. Then he turned and left. My hair was wet. My shoes were wet. But I did not care. I felt warm inside. The next day, I found a paper in one of the books on my desk. It was a letter. There was no name, but I knew it was from Leo. It said, "I know I should not say this. I know you are my teacher, but I think about you. I will not do anything wrong. I just wanted you to know." My hand shook. My face felt hot. I closed the paper and put it in my drawer. I did not speak to him. I did not write back. But that night, I read the letter again. More days passed. Then the last class came. I gave the lesson. I said goodbye to my students. They clapped. They took their certificates and left. But Leo stayed. He walked to my desk. He looked into my eyes. "So this is the end," he said. I nodded. "Yes. You are not my student anymore." He gave a small smile. "No, I am not." We stood there in silence. Then he said, "Thank you, Miss Anna, for teaching me, and for more than that." I looked at him. I wanted to say something, but I said, "Good luck, Leo." He turned and walked away. I stood in the classroom alone. My hands were cold. My heart was full. My head said, "Be quiet." But my heart whispered, "I miss him already." After the final class, I did not see Leo again. The classroom felt empty. The halls were quiet. I walked through the same doors, but something had changed. I still smiled at my new students. I still taught my lessons. But inside, I felt heavy. I thought about Leo every day. I remembered his voice, his smile, his eyes. I missed him. I went to the cafe near the bookstore. I sat by the window and looked outside. I watched the people walk past. I hoped to see him again. I looked at the door many times, but Leo never came. I finished my tea and walked home. My heart was still full of him. At night, I cooked dinner. I watched the news. I cleaned my kitchen. I read books. But my thoughts always went back to Leo. I saw his face in my mind. I heard his words in my heart. I asked myself, why do I still feel this way? I tried to forget him, but it did not work. Many weeks passed, then a few months. Each day felt slow. Some days I felt okay, but many days I felt empty. My flat was quiet. My phone stayed silent. I went to bed early. I woke up tired. I missed feeling alive. I missed the way I felt when he was around. I started walking more in the evenings. I walked near the river. I sat in the park. I watched children play. I watched couples laugh. I watched old people feed the birds. I sat alone on a bench and closed my eyes. Sometimes I wished I could go back in time, just for a moment. One evening, I met my friend Caroline again. We sat in our usual cafe. She ordered coffee. I ordered tea. She looked at me and smiled. "You are still thinking about him," she said. I nodded. "Yes, I am." She took my hand. "Then maybe your story with him is not finished." Her words made me think. That night, I looked at the stars. I sat near my window and closed my eyes. I did not speak. I only felt. I hoped. I wished. One Saturday morning, the sky was clear. The sun was soft. I went to the local market. I wanted fruit and flowers. I walked slowly. I stopped at the flower stall. I looked at the yellow tulips. They were my favorite. Then I heard a voice. "Miss Anna." I turned around. It was Leo. He looked a little older. His hair was longer. He had a small beard. He looked at me and smiled. I could not move. My heart jumped. "Leo," I said. "Hello." He stepped closer. "It's really you." "Yes," I said. "It's been a long time." He looked at the flowers. "You still like tulips?" "I do," I said. They make me happy. We stood in silence for a few seconds. Then he said, "Can we talk?" I looked around. I saw a bench under a tree. "Let's sit there." We walked together to the bench. We sat down. The wind touched my face. The birds sang above us. The moment felt still. "I wanted to see you," he said. "Many times. But I didn't know if I should." "I thought about you too," I said. "A lot." He looked at me. "You were my teacher. I never forgot that. But I also never forgot how you made me feel." I looked down at my hands. "You are not my student anymore." "No," he said. "I'm not." We both smiled. "I work now," he said, "at a bookshop near the old library. It's quiet. I help people find books. I read a lot too." "That sounds nice," I said. "It is," he said. "Reminds me of our class. Of you." My heart was beating fast. "Can I ask something?" he said. "Yes," I said. "Do you still feel it?" he asked. "The same feeling." I looked at his face. I saw truth in his eyes. I could not lie. "Yes," I said. "I do." He let out a small breath. "I feel it too," he said. "Still." I looked away. I was afraid. I still am. "I don't want to hurt you," he said. "Or your work. I just want to know you. Not as a teacher. Just as a person." His voice was soft. His words were clear. "I don't know if we should," I said. "Then let's not rush," he said. "Let's meet like friends." "Maybe," I said. "Maybe we can." He smiled. "Next week? Tea?" I looked at him. "Okay." We stood up. He walked with me to the end of the street. He waved goodbye. I watched him walk away. My hands felt cold, but my heart felt warm. I had not smiled like that in a long time. The next week we met at the cafe. We sat at the same table near the window. He wore a green sweater. I wore a white dress. We talked for over an hour. We laughed. We remembered books from our class. He said, "You were the first teacher who really saw me." I smiled. We met again the next week. We walked in the park. The trees were full and green. We sat by the river. The water moved slowly. He told me about his family. I told him about mine. I felt calm. I felt safe. Sometimes we just sat in silence, but it was not a sad silence. It was soft. It was full of meaning. One day I told Caroline, "We are seeing each other," I said. She looked at me. "Are you happy?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Very," she smiled. "Then it's okay. You waited, and now he's not your student. It's not wrong anymore." Her words made me feel better. Each time I met Leo, I felt lighter. I started to sleep better. I started to dream again. I looked forward to the next day, to the next smile, to the next moment with him. He did not try to impress me. He did not try to be perfect. He was just himself. And I liked that. We went to museums. We went to a small movie. We sat in the garden and talked. We shared food. We shared jokes. We shared silence. All of it felt easy. It felt real. One evening, we sat near the bookstore where he worked. He gave me a small gift. It was a bookmark. On it were the words, "Thank you for seeing me." I touched the bookmark. I looked at him. I did not speak. I just smiled. That night I held the bookmark in my hand. I thought about him, about the past, about the quiet love that was growing now. Maybe we did not start in the right way. Maybe our story was strange, but it was still real, and it was just beginning. Time passed quickly after that. Leo and I continued to meet. We talked, we laughed, and we shared many quiet days. I started to feel alive again. I felt young and full of hope. But deep inside, I was also afraid. I did not speak about this fear, not even to Caroline. One afternoon, we sat in the park. The sun was soft. Children played nearby. Leo was reading a book. I watched him. His face was calm. His hands held the book gently. I smiled, but then I felt something inside me. Something sad. I asked myself again, can this really work? He was kind. He was smart. He cared about me. But he was still young. And I was not only older. I had been his teacher. People would talk. My job could be at risk. My name could be hurt. Leo looked up. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. I looked away. "Nothing important," I said. But it was a lie. At home, I sat in my chair and thought for hours. I made tea. I looked at the rain on the window. I tried to think clearly. I asked myself, what do I want? What is right? Caroline came over that weekend. I told her how I felt. I said, "I love being with him, but I am scared. I don't know what to do." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "It's okay to be scared, but you have to be honest. With him and with yourself." The next time I saw Leo, we sat at a table outside the cafe. The sky was gray. The wind was cold. I looked at him for a long time before I spoke. "Leo," I said, "I care about you, but I need to think about the future." He looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I'm not sure if this can work," I said. He looked hurt. "Why not?" "You are younger," I said. "You are just starting your life. I already lived that part. He was quiet. I'm not saying I don't feel anything, I said. I do. But feelings are not always enough. He looked into my eyes. Do you want to stop seeing me? I did not answer right away. No, I said. But maybe we need space. Leo did not argue. He just looked down. Okay, he said. If that's what you need. That was the last time we met for many weeks. The days felt long again. The evenings felt dark. I walked to work. I walked home. I saw the same people, but something was missing. I missed Leo, but I also felt quiet inside, like I had closed a door and did not know how to open it again. 2 months passed. One day, I received an invitation to a wedding. It was from an old friend. I went. I wore a blue dress. I sat near the back. People danced. People laughed. I stood near the table, holding a glass of water. Then I heard someone say, "Anna?" I turned. It was Mark, a man I knew from my past. We had worked together at a summer school many years ago. He smiled. I smiled too. We talked. We shared stories. We laughed. That night he walked me home. We met again the next week. Then again. Mark was different from Leo. He was my age. He had a stable job. He liked quiet things. He spoke gently. He made me feel safe, not excited like Leo, but calm, peaceful. Months passed. Mark asked me to marry him. I looked at him. He was good. He was kind. I said yes. My family was happy. My friends were happy. Caroline hugged me and said, "I'm proud of you." But inside, part of me felt sad. I remembered Leo, his voice, his smile, his gift, the bookmark. Thank you for seeing me. I kept it in my book, hidden but close. I did not see Leo again until one rainy afternoon, 1 year later. I was walking through the bookshop where he once worked. I saw him standing near the back, helping a child find a book. He looked older now, more serious, still kind. He turned and saw me. His face changed. Not angry, not sad, just surprised. "Hi, Leo," I said. "Hi," he said. "It's been a while?" "Yes," I said. "It has." He looked at my hand. He saw the ring. He smiled, but it was a small, quiet smile. "You got married," he said. "I did," I said. "Just a few months ago." He looked at the floor. "I'm happy for you." I wanted to say something. I wanted to tell him he was not a mistake, that he still meant something, that he helped me feel again. Instead, I said, "You look well." "So do you," he said. We stood in silence. Then he said, "I still remember our talks, our walks, the class." "I remember too," I said. He gave a small laugh. "I still have your old book, the one you gave me." "Really?" I smiled. "Yes," he said. "It has a flower inside, from that walk near the river." I looked at him. He was no longer a boy. He was a man now. A kind man. A strong man. But not mine. "Well," I said, "it was good to see you." "You too," he said. We said goodbye. I walked out of the shop. The rain was soft. My steps were slow. That night, I sat by the window with a cup of tea. I looked at the rain again. I thought of him. I thought of what could have been, but I also knew I had made a choice. Sometimes love is not enough. Sometimes we choose safety over fire, calm over chaos. I walked down the aisle with someone who could give me peace. I left behind the one who made my heart beat fast. Was it the right choice? I may never know, but I carry Leo in my heart, not with pain, but with warmth. He helped me feel again. He helped me see myself, and that will never go away. Some stories do not end with forever. Some stories end quietly, but they still matter. And this was one of them. We all go through hard times, but stories like this can help us feel seen. Thank you for watching, and come back for more real moments.